Before I ask you about the next property you're considering, I've got to know, what's the dream you're trying to build through real estate? Not what neighborhood are you trying to buy in, not what's the projected cash flow, not what's the cap rate. Those are important questions, but I don't think they're the first question any investor, including myself, should be asking. These questions are great second questions. The first question is much bigger. What future life do you want your real estate investments to create? Here's what I've learned. Every property is taking you somewhere. The question is whether it's taking you where you actually want to go. Let's look at an example of this. If you have a choice between a property with a 15% return on investment and another one with a 20% return on investment, but the 20% ROI comes with a heavy renovation lift and time demands that hurt your marriage with 6 months and weekends away from your kids while they're growing up. Which property or ROI will better fulfill your life dream without hurting the people who matter most to you? Here's the problem. Most investors start with a property, not a clearly defined dream. They open Zillow, they call a realtor, they respond to a wholesaler, someone sends them a deal, then they ask, is this a good investment? That's backwards. Imagine getting into your car, starting the engine, driving for 3 hours without ever deciding where you're going. Would you eventually arrive somewhere? Of course you would. Would it necessarily be where you wanted to go? Likely not. Yet that's exactly how many people invest in real estate. They start driving before they choose the destination. Now, imagine standing at the beginning of a corn maze or perhaps a hedge maze, the one that you can't see over the top of the walls you're in. Most people walk right up to the entrance, step inside, and hope they'll eventually find the exit. And then they run into a lot of dead ends until they finally find the way out. And in the process, they get lost, turned around, waste time, and get frustrated. This is how most investors approach investing, but the stakes are far higher. Finances are tipping in the wrong direction, marriages are strained, children are ignored, and there's increased anxiety, stress, and frustration. The smartest investors approach the real estate maze differently. They climb a ladder. They look at the maze from above, first identifying the destination, and then they work backwards. This is how successful real estate investors think. Before they ever evaluate a property, they define success. They clarify their life dream. You see, once you know where you're going, it's much easier to recognize which opportunities actually move you in that direction. This is why the dream determines the deal. So, what does success look like? Well, for one investor, success might mean buying real estate to create an off ramp so they can leave a demanding corporate job 5 years from now. For someone else, it might mean caring for aging parents without financial stress. Maybe it's paying for your grandchildren's education. Maybe it's creating financial opportunities for your children. Maybe it's supporting causes you believe in. Those are very different destinations. And because they're different, the type of real estate investments you make should be different too. One person may need maximum cash flow. Someone else may value flexibility over growth. There's no universal best investment. There's only the investment that best aligns with the life you're trying to build. Years ago, my own definition of success changed dramatically. Like many people, I spent years pursuing goals that seemed important at the time. When COVID hit, the national nonprofit I was leading took a 78% hit on revenue within 3 weeks of the government shutting down large events across the country. This forced me to ask a difficult question. Not what job should I find, but rather, what mission am I being called to? This question eventually led me here to this very moment with you, helping local Main Street real estate investors make wiser decisions before they commit capital to deals. While stepping away from the nonprofit was one of the most difficult seasons of my life, looking back, I can tell you that I'm grateful that those circumstances forced me to redefine the destination and dream of my life. Because once the destination became clear, the path became clearer too. But let's bring it back to you. Before you evaluate another property, I'd encourage you to pause, grab a notebook or your journal, and answer a few questions. What am I actually trying to build? Who benefits if I succeed? What am I unwilling to sacrifice to get there? What does success really look like 10 years from now? Once these questions are answered, then and only then begin evaluating properties. You'll probably pass on opportunities that once looked exciting, and you'll recognize opportunities you might have overlooked before. Not because the property's changed, because you changed. Over the next several weeks, we're going to build on this idea. We're going to talk about risk, leverage, choosing your team, cash flow, holding costs, the 4 numbers that must be evaluated on every deal before committing capital. And in the process, you will find clarity and confidence to make great real estate decisions that fulfill your dream. That's what's coming. But today, there's one question that deserves your answer. What future are you actually trying to build through real estate? Once that answer becomes clear, everything else becomes easier to evaluate. The dream determines the deal. If this video is helping you think differently about real estate investing, then hit the subscribe button. Each week, we're going to build on this one timeless principle to help you make wiser investment decisions before you commit capital.